And thank you for joining the WISE webinar, an introduction to cultural change with WISE 10 steps. My name is Shagufta and I'll be hosting the webinar, but Claire will be running it in a couple of minutes. So just a couple of housekeeping tips and points to make. You're all on mute, but we want this to be an interactive session. So as Claire's going through the presentation, it'd be great if you could send your questions in and add them to the chat box at the bottom, so the question bar that you have at the bottom there. And I'll put those to Claire at the end. And then we'll have a couple of questions, we'll have some time at the end to go through those. I'll now hand over to Claire and she'll go through the presentation with you.
Thanks so much, Shagufta. Okay, welcome everybody, and this webinar is going to be an introduction to cultural change with the WISE 10 steps. So I'm going to talk a little bit about WISE. I'd like to talk about the business case and the reasons why many companies find diversity a very important area, give you some statistics and some background knowledge behind that so that you can help to convince others in your company that it's really important to invest in diversity change and cultural change. So just to start the way, I'm assuming many of you are aware of what WISE does. But just to give a little bit of background information for those who may not know us as well as others. So WISE is a membership organisation. We're what's called a CIC, so any money we make goes back into the organisation to invest in our products and services that we offer to our members. We've been around for around about 30 years now, first as a government initiative, and then in more recent years, it's been a case of us trying to work as a CIC, as I say, so any money that we make comes into WISE, and then our money goes into developing new products and services. Our overall aim is to increase the number of girls and women in a STEM career. So that's encouraging girls to go into a STEM career and encouraging women to stay in their careers, support them in their careers, and ultimately to encourage them back into those careers at a later stage after they may have had a career break for family reasons or any other reasons. We have over 180 corporate and academic members, and we have 16,000 affiliate members. So we have a wide range of people who can share knowledge and breadth of experience with you as well. If you look at the WISE members by their industry, we have a wide range of companies who've joined WISE as members. Many of our members are from the education, so the education sector, so for example universities, schools, UTCs, a large number are in engineering, but we also have a wide range of members from other organisations as well. STEM isn't just about traditional science topics these days. It broadens into almost every sector and every industry that you can think of, from utilities, all the way through to technology and telecoms, through to finance, banking, automotive. Everyone these days needs some kind of technological background and people who have that STEM experience to be able to help them to draw in their to make money within their organisations and support them in technical ways. So a STEM career is a very valuable thing for many members and for many organisations. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the business case for diversity. So this is giving you some idea as to why it's important for us to have a diverse organisation. It's really critical to convince people that that diversity is important. It's going to make a difference to their organisation. And to do that, we have a number of statistics and information that you can use to convince others that diversity is really, really, really important. So first of all, I'm going to talk about girls in school, girls and boys in school. And if you ask girls and boys in school to draw a scientist, most of them will draw something that looks like these pictures. So white, male, frizzy hair, a lab coat, some test tubes, some very dangerous blue liquid, and it's a pity really that they draw all of these, but that's just the stereotype that's around these days. Obviously Einstein has a lot to do with it, but that's not what many scientists these days look like, and it is important for that reason to have role models and to talk about people and people in their jobs, just showing that every day typical STEM careers are everyday typical STEM people. And unless girls and boys see those people doing those jobs, they won't understand what a STEM career looks like to them. Things are changing. We still have the lab coat, we still have the test tube, we still have the glasses. It's still a chemist in many ways, but it's a girl. And that's just so critical that, you know, that girls and boys are now starting to think about new ways and think about role models in a different perspective when it comes to STEM careers. So just to give you a few statistics, if you look at the educational pipeline, so girls in GCSEs, all children are encouraged to do science at some level or in some way at GCSE. So the numbers of girls at GCSE doing a core STEM qualification at GCSE is around about 48%. Now, it's worth me mentioning here that WISE focuses on what we call core STEM. Core STEM is your science, your engineering, information, technology, communications technology. It excludes the healthcare options, it excludes doctors, nurses, dentists and medical professionals. They don't have a problem encouraging females into those careers. And so when WISE talks about a STEM career, we're talking about core STEM and those science, those physical science areas. And these are the results that we're displaying here. If you look at girls at A level, the number of girls taking a core STEM A level is actually still pretty high. It's 43%. And that's really encouraging. Many of those, though, will be taking things like chemistry and physics. When you look at physics, that number drops significantly to 23%. And when you look at computing, then it drops even further and down to 13%. And so it's just, you know, it just shows that the number of girls taking A levels, it looks pretty good to begin with, but when you look in more detail, there is a significant drop already at the number of girls taking what is assumed to be more difficult or more technical STEM qualifications. If you look at apprenticeships are particularly hit by the number of girls not going into apprenticeships. Here we look at core STEM apprenticeships, and just 11% of higher apprenticeships, so this would be something like the first year of a degree, are completed and achieved by females. Apprenticeships aren't seen as a traditional route for girls to go into, and so we really do need to change this attitude and try and encourage more girls and more parents, crucially, that STEM apprenticeships are a valid form of achieving a qualification and you know, ultimately achieving that education and that experience in a company, and that girls are just as able and just as likely to get those apprenticeships as boys are. When you look at undergraduates, that number again decreases. So we've now gone from 48% at GCSE to 43% at A level, and now on average 26% of core STEM graduate students. And again, computer science and engineering technology, it's very low numbers, 16% for females studying those subjects. And so you can already see this pipeline decreasing, getting smaller and smaller. Now, of course, all of these people are going into jobs. So they've come out, they've graduated, and they go into the STEM workforce. And so when we look at women as a percentage of the STEM workforce, as you can see on the top right-hand side, women in science professional careers is 45%. That includes all science professional careers. So it includes all of the healthcare professions as well. If you just looked at core STEM, which is the physical sciences, as we mentioned, the physics, chemistry, maths, technological sort of areas, then you're looking at actually it decreases further to 24%. Just 24% of girls are doing what we call a core STEM occupation, working as in a core STEM career. And women in engineering, you know, that's down to 10%. So it's really this, you know, this just shows how important it is to look in detail at these facts and figures. And it really highlights so few women going into these professional occupations as a scientist. And, you know, there's a lot that companies can do to try and encourage girls in school, to try and encourage an uptake of girls into apprenticeships, and to encourage women in those careers and keep them, crucially keep them in those careers, once they've chosen those subjects to study. There is hope though. So if you look 10 years ago, in 2009, the number of women in engineering was just under 6%, 5.8%, and that's doubled in the last 10 years. So engineering may look like a very low statistic, but actually it's a success story. The engineering firms have put a lot of effort into encouraging girls to come into an engineering career. They put a lot of effort into apprenticeships. They put a lot of effort into recruiting more females in their organisations. And we really want to see those changes in other sectors as well. If you look at tech across that same period, so women in technology careers, this is IT and technology careers, then you look at the number of ICT professionals, and we're going from 2009, 15.7%. In 10 years, that number has gone up by just 0.8%, 0.7%. And so it's only a tiny change. So if you put the effort in and you encourage females to go into these careers, they will go in and they will stay in there if you get the right cultural conditions in your organisation. So there is hope and things are changing, but it does take time. Finally, our big number. So we've finally reached 1 million women in STEM. So WISE has been working for the last 5 years to try and increase the number of women in STEM, and now we have 1 million working women in STEM, and that's just fantastic, in core STEM roles in the UK. And we want to, we have a big promotional campaign this year, which is going to be highlighting all of those women talking about their careers. And so if you'd like to find out more about that, if you go onto our website, we have the 1 of a million campaign on our website. You can go on and you can put your picture in as a female working in STEM and add your details and your job, and encourage other people to think about those career options in STEM. So where do we go from here? If we've got 1 million women in STEM, we want to increase that number, don't we, obviously? And so we've worked out from a recent report, a Harvard report, and the link is at the bottom here if you'd like to go and have a look in more detail on this, that to get a critical mass change in which a minority group of women becomes able to actually influence real change and make those changes in an organisation, you need 30% women in the organisation. And so WISE has a new target that by 2030, we want to see 30% of the workforce as women. And so over the next few years, we'll be putting in a lot of effort into changing and working through frameworks like the 10 steps, looking at returners, driving change at school, working to bring girls into those careers and to keep them in those careers and to return them to those careers as they get older. So everywhere, right the way from the classroom all the way up to the boardroom, as we say, we want to see more women at all those levels in core STEM. This next slide is very interesting. It's from an Amazon report. It's from a WISE report last year that was sponsored by Amazon. And what we did was we surveyed a number of women working in the innovation sector. So we wanted to know, why do women in STEM, how do they become innovators? And in that survey, we asked them a number of questions. What makes the biggest difference? What enables you in your career, in your role? And how did you get into that role? So what made the biggest difference? And right at the very top, you can clearly see personal qualities. The personal qualities have the biggest influence. It's the biggest enabler for women in their STEM career. Their determination, their self-efficacy, having that work-life balance, that's the thing that made the biggest difference to them in their career and moving forward and moving ahead. The next biggest section is what we've called organisational factors. These are things that we believe a company can change. So your positive culture, feeling accepted, making women feel like they're part of the organisation and they're recognised as part of the organisation. They're given that support, given that, given some policies that actually encourage them in their career and help them to maintain their career and keep going through more difficult times if they decide to leave and have a family, support them back into that. And those organisational factors, they're quite important in the overall scheme of things. That's the area where a company makes the big difference. And then finally, socio-economic factors is the idea that, you know, your education, does your education make a big difference? Does it help you enable you in your career? Well, of course, education is very important, but it's interesting that actually it comes beneath what an organization can do for you in progressing your career. And so, you know, having as education, having that family support is very important, but it's not the biggest enabler in your career. That once you've got that education, you can move on, and it's the organization that make the biggest difference in moving you forward. When you look at the barriers for women, so we also asked about what are the top barriers for these women in the organisation? What makes what is least likely to encourage them in their career? And top, first and foremost, is a lack of confidence. And that's just such a big area. There's many reasons for a lack of confidence. It can be down to the way in which the women are treated in an organisation. It can be down to the way in which it can be down to their education in terms of the fact they may see that they become, you know, that they're going into more of a male-dominated area. It can be a personal lack of confidence. There's many reasons, and so we wouldn't want to put that down just to an organisation or to any other reason. So we'll leave that one alone for the minute. Lots of reasons behind that one, but really interestingly is all of those reasons underneath. The organisational factors are the biggest barriers. This caused a lot of, you know, this is where women saw the biggest barriers in their careers, having to fit into that male-dominated workplace, having to pretend that you're one of the lads to be recognised, not having mentoring, not being given opportunities, not being given that ability to progress their career sufficiently that they feel that they want to stay in the organisation, having problems with sexism within the organisation. You know, these are real answers from real women working in these fields, and 70% of them are saying that they don't have these opportunities to grow, that they have a lack of mentoring, that they're not being recognised, and that's a significant number of people who find that these barriers are in their way. And importantly, all of these areas are something that a company can make a difference in. The company can change these areas. They can help put in place career development platforms. They can help to put in support around education and family, and, you know, and educating women and moving them on in their career. They can offer mentoring. Senior management can make a crucial part of the company policy that they're going to support women in their career. All of these changes are just so important. And so if you'd like to find out more of the statistics and more of the details behind this, then please do go onto our website. At the very top of our website, we have what's called the business case for diversity. It talks through these details, these statistics in a lot more detail. There's a lot of information on our website. And actually, it's just really interesting. This graph on the right-hand side shows that if you were to look at the World Index and you looked at companies that had a large number of females or were led by females in them, they do better in the FTSE than actually other companies do that don't have so many females. If ever you needed advice and support that more females and more diversity in your organisation makes a difference to the bottom line, there it is in black and white. You know, and all of this information, as I say, is on our website underneath the business case for diversity. It's available to everybody, so please do go on, have a look at that and read it. Finally, I'd like to just talk about the 10 steps. So the 10 steps is a WISE initiative. It's an industry-led initiative, by which we mean we give the support and the framework to companies for them to go out and make a cultural change in their business to support and encourage women and girls in the organisation. And each of these 10 steps is aimed at driving company performance and improving profit. So you can increase the number of women in an organisation whilst improving the profit in that organisation. A little bit of background behind the 10 steps. Started in 2014, business leaders came together and discussed how they could encourage more women in STEM careers. And they came up with this framework for action. and all of the steps were specifically chosen to make a difference to the bottom line of an organisation. The 10 steps is different from many other initiatives out there. It's got the flexibility to allow companies, it was important at the time to think about the flexibility to encourage companies to make the change at their own pace. So unlike national audit programs like the National Equality Standard, change is made at the company's own pace. They choose which areas they want to focus on, and they can identify those areas with our diagnostic and work through the 10 steps as they want to at their own pace. For the 10 steps, we do ask that signatories sign up formally and officially to say that they will make this public commitment to improve conditions for women working in STEM. We ask them to commit that action, convert their commitment into practical action, and we ask them to become advocates for gender equality and encourage others in the wider industry. So sharing best practice and participating in our annual benchmarking survey, where we get all of our organisations to fill out the diagnostic, and we can then have effectively a benchmarking standard for what other organisations are doing in those areas. We now have 62 signatories for the 10 steps, which is just fantastic. All these organisations work with us, and a lot of them participate in the benchmarking towards the end of the year, from which we provide a report about what all these organisations are doing and which we share best practice. So just to move through the 10 steps and talk a little bit more about them in detail. So the 10 steps are, as I say, 10 different steps. Understanding your starting point. If you don't understand where you're starting from, you will never monitor progress. If you don't know the number of women in your organisation, you will never be able to say that you made a difference and that you can commit to further action in future. Educating your leaders. If your leaders and your senior staff are not on board with this, then you won't be able to drive these changes through the organisation as effectively. So, communicating why diversity is important, giving them those business statistics, giving them those reasons that we've just discussed are so critical for getting them on board so that you can have them behind you to drive this change through the organisation. And that's one of the reasons why we ask for a senior signatory to sign when our signatories sign up for the 10 steps. Changing mindsets, so offering women the chance to have a safe space to challenge biases and sexism. Everybody recognises that it's seen as a bit of a whistleblowing exercise sometimes, and it's not the case. You need a safe place for people to be able to challenge this biases and sexism and discuss it. It may be that it turns out that there wasn't any to begin with. It may be there is a bias that nobody have recognised in the past. Having that safe space to talk about it is just really crucial to making cultural change permanent and something worth fighting for in your organisation. Being creative in job design. Does the person taking that job on, if you're going to recruit for a new job, do they need 30 years of experience just because the person leading had 30 years of experience? Do they have, is there the option to bring on somebody at a lower level, maybe an apprentice or a graduate, and train them up and put them through a leadership program? Just having different ways of thinking about the way in which you advertise your jobs. Making flexible working a reality for all. It's not an issue at the moment. So, many organisations are being forced into that problem at the moment. How do they make flexible working a possibility at home? But crucially, many organisations which traditionally have not wanted to work at home or have flexible working offered to their employees have found that actually it's working really well for them. It reduces the costs on premises. It can increase the staff participation. Sometimes it reduces the number of business meetings you might have, and it might improve efficiency. So, just thinking about different ways of working and looking at those. Increasing the transparency of opportunities for progression. Making sure that women have the opportunity to find out about all these jobs. And it's not a conversation around the water cooler. This is, jobs advertised openly, and everybody has an equal opportunity to advertise, to apply for them. Sponsoring female talent to the same extent as male talent. Similarly, giving females the same opportunities as men. And that doesn't necessarily mean giving them opportunities that men aren't offered. It's critical that you have these male allies, you don't alienate, men in the organisation, but ensuring that women have equal opportunities to men. Demonstrating that you want to retain and develop them. This is the area of looking at your career development programs, of looking at your returner programs, of supporting women as they go on maternity leave, supporting the managers in the organisation to support those women going on maternity leave. Approaching like any other business improvement project, this is the idea that if you don't know where you're going, if this was a project that you were going to do in your organisation, to do it well, you would set out a plan, a project plan, and you would work towards that. You'd have a budget, you'd have a timeline. You should do that with diversity as well. You should make it a part of the agenda, and it doesn't get lost on that agenda or put to the bottom of the agenda. And then finally, sharing, learning, and good practice. This is our benchmarking, this is our knowledge sharing events. Come along, talk to other members, find out what they're doing in these areas, find out how they may have struggled to get these changes through as well. What did they do to change that? How did they make those changes over time? It's just so important to share that information. So when you've signed up as a signatory, then the diagnostic is WISE have a diagnostic, 10 steps diagnostic, which we send out to our members. And this is the opportunity to look in more detail at all of the different 10 steps. Ask your employees to fill out this questionnaire. Do your leaders really understand the business case for diversity and inclusion? Find out the real perspective from people within the organisation and find out where they think the company is doing well and not so well. This is part of being a signatory. It's free so signing up as a signatory if you're a WISE member is free, and this diagnostic is offered to you for free as part of that signatory status. And then that gives you the results to look at. This company's doing really well in educating its leader. It's doing very well in sponsoring its female talent. Where it doesn't do so well is in sharing good learning and good practice and flexible working. And crucially, this gives that company a chance to go out and to start making their business plan. Where are they going to make those changes? Would you start with flexible working? It's an easier area potentially at the moment to start, rather than having to, look at other areas that you might not want to focus on at the moment. So as I've mentioned, we have the annual benchmarking meeting, which again is free for all signatories to turn up to as long as you're core membership and above. We have an annual meeting where we ask all of our signatories to submit one of those diagnostics, and we compare all the different companies against each other anonymously, so that we can see where companies are doing really well and where companies are struggling. And on those areas where they're struggling, we can get companies that are doing well in those areas to share their best practice and to share their case studies so that they can help you to make those changes. Here's the results from our signatory benchmarking last year. This is ranked in order of the best step, so the step that companies do well in compared to the steps that companies don't do so well in. So making flexible working a reality for all is an easier one than increasing the transparency of opportunity for progression. And many companies struggle in those areas at the bottom, those red areas. So sharing the best practice and sharing understanding about what you're doing in those areas is really good. Just quickly, because I'm aware we're running short on time, apologies, it's taken a bit longer than I expected. So this is a couple of our companies that have done really well with the 10 steps. So Network Rail traditionally had an image problem, and for generations it was seen as men's work. So most jobs were effectively closed to women, and they realised that they had a very low female workforce number. And so they've worked really hard for the last 5, 6, 10 years to increase the number of women in their organisation. They work closely with us as a strategic partner. They sponsor our research projects, the WISE Awards, the conference, and they've been hosting our CXO breakfast. Network Rail also participate very strongly in the 10 Steps programme. They have a dedicated steering group that looks at all the statistics from around their network and all their different areas, and specifically drills down into all those areas using the 10 steps as a framework and a guidance. TSP Projects is another member that presented at our benchmarking last year. TSB projects wanted to improve their business model around diversity and inclusion, and they wanted to make a plan for how they were going to approach this. And so they created a women in business group. So this brought in women from across the business with men and male allies included, so women in business, not always just women. And so they looked at increasing the number of women in the organisation, and they held a workshop to reference against the 10 steps. And so they came up with 3 pillars: effective branding, supporting growth, and attracting talent. And then they put those 10 steps and areas that matched in those 10 steps under there, so that they have a framework to work towards, and they can actually directly improve their diversity. Just a few slides about how to become a 10-step signatory. So if you were interested in signing up as a 10-step signatory, you can talk to your partnership manager as at WISE. So every member in WISE has a partnership manager, and they'd be very happy to talk you through 10 steps in more detail and talk about how it can benefit your organisation. We're setting up a registration form online, so you'll be able to go online and register as an online signatory there. The requirements for being as 10-step signatories, I've said, signatories must be members of WISE. They have to be at core membership or above, and this is to demonstrate their commitment and allow them to attend the in-person measuring progress events. And then we're going to ask in future that signatories renew their commitment every 2 years to show their commitment to the 10 steps and their commitment to changing diversity. Online, in our 10 steps area, we have a wide range of reports and information from all of our different knowledge sharing events, and it's just really worthwhile going on there and having a look at those reports. We recently held a knowledge sharing event on returners. There's statistics, there's information, there's best practice case studies in there from that particular event. Please do go on and have a look at all of these reports and share that information. And then finally, I'd just be very happy to take any questions and anything that's come in. So back to you, Shagufta.
Thanks very much, Claire. That was fantastic. We've had a couple of questions coming through, so I'll try and get through as many as we can. I understand we're slightly short of time now. So one of the questions I've had come in is, what's the difference between this and the National Quality Standard?
So the National Quality Standard is an audited process. So companies sign up and they commit in a similar way to improving their diversity through a framework. National Quality Standard does require them to be audited every year. So it's quite a lot of work. It means that you have somebody come into the business and they go into different parts of the business. They effectively mark you in those different areas against how you're achieving on their national standard. So it's a fantastic way of improving your diversity. Many members of ours prefer 10 steps because they can take it at their own pace. They can work on the steps, they can work on them individually and at a rate they wish to, and they can identify the areas they want to work on and work through those at a progress rate they want to work on, and to their budget as well.
And just to go back to your point about the form being online, that is live on the website, and if anybody's interested in becoming a signatory, you can fill the form on online now as well on our website. The next question I have coming through is, do we have to work through all the steps at the same time?
No, so many of our signatories do get rather worried they're going to have to suddenly start working on all these different steps all at the same time. That is definitely not the case. You identify with the diagnostic where your company may not be doing so well, and then with our guidance and our help from our website and from our team, and our partnership managers, we can guide you through what you can do in those different areas. You choose the areas you want to. So many companies may start on something like flexible working, where there's a good, clear precedent and it will work well and fairly easily. They can drive it easily, and they'll look at improving the other areas as they get a chance to.
One of the questions, I think you've covered this off though, but it's, if we wanted to become a signatory, what would be the next process? So would that be just going on the website, signing, filling in that form, or and speak to the partnership manager, or anything else that you would suggest?
Yes, those two things. So I'd suggest that the first place to go is talking to the partnership manager. If you'd like to know more information, they can give you details on how it would affect, how it would be part of how you can sign up as members. And then once you're ready with that and you've got your commitment from a senior leader all ready to go, then you're very welcome to go onto the website and sign up there, or email us, as you can see on the screen, for further information.
Cool. That applies to anybody who's not a member and doesn't have a partnership manager, so they can just email us directly, can't they?
Yeah.
What's the cost involved?
So once you're a WISE member, there's no additional cost to becoming a 10-step signatory, as long as you're a core member and above. And you can take the diagnostic, you can access the information on our website for free, and you can start your journey in improving cultural change within your organisation with literally no further costs.
And then we have a 10 steps workshop as well, and where does that fit in?
So the 10 steps workshop is offered to premium members and above as a freebie on their membership. So all premium members are offered a free 10 steps workshop. If you're core, it does have a cost of $1,500. It doesn't prevent you from using the 10 steps framework by yourself, but the 10 steps workshop is our guided, so we take you through the diagnostic and then we guide you through the changes that we'd recommend for your organisation. So it's effectively us coming in to do a personalised 10 steps analysis for your company and helping you define the way ahead.
Someone's asked if these materials, a PowerPoint, will be shared. I'm sure the recording will be available on the member area, and we'll be able to share that link with you as well after this webinar. And someone's asked the question of when will the one in a million campaign start? 1 of a million.
So 1 of a million campaign has been delayed previously because of all the problems with COVID-19. We didn't feel it was the right time to launch it then. The 1 of a million campaign will be going live, we think, next week. It'll be launched to everyone.
I think that's all the questions we can fit in for now. I'll hand over to you. And then
I should just say, sorry, that when I say next week, obviously this is being recorded. So from the 4th of May, it will be launched. And it is finally just worth mentioning that we'll be following these webinars up with a few more webinars on the 10 steps. The next one will focus on the 10 steps workshop as to what that brings you and how we run a 10 steps workshop. And then we'll be looking to get some members in to talk through some of their best practices and how they've used the 10 steps over the next few years. So keep an eye on our events pages for those webinars as well.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Claire. I'll just let you wrap up now.
Thank you so much. So yes, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to get in contact by email or phone your partnership manager. And we look forward to having you as a 10-step signatory and working with you in future. Thank you.
Thanks very much.